Ready, set, go.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And
I'm Kat Bailey.
And I'm Jack Bailey. And we're all three going to host today. And we're going to just kind of have like a little roundtable discussion on this podcast. Dre, what's our topic today?
Today is Greedy Origins, the origins of one of our most move around game, probably, other than freestyle,
Yep.
right? Greedy is kind of known for being a really mobile game, so it's our most mobile and active game.
We need a t-shirt that says that, Greedy, most move around game.
Most move around game. There you go, Babs.
Babs, get on it. I know you're listening. I know you're listening.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the origins of the game Greedy today.
I think people will like that.
Yeah, we have Jack as our sort of guest, but he's also he's mostly probably going to be answering questions. Yeah. And Kat and I will probably mostly be asking questions. So that's our plan. But anything could happen on the Updog podcast. So.
Wow. This is exciting. Anything could happen.
The first question, Jack, coming your way. Was there a specific reason that Greedy was developed?
That is a good question, Dre. And many times when we develop games, we are developing them for a specific purpose. Mm-hmm. We might see a skill set that we think that maybe our players could benefit from having, and so we develop a game around it. Longer throws, team movement, things like that. I wish that I could say there was like some great, specific reason that we made this game, but there wasn't. This game came about
in a dream.
In a dream, really, it did. We had been beta testing another game, like the weekend, the day before, and I can't even remember which game that was. Was that long game that was like back and forth across the field?
Yeah, the Garion remix build.
So we had been beta testing another game. Beta testing didn't go well. The game the players broke the game pretty quickly, and we just realized that it wasn't going to work. And then essentially in the morning, like I had this brainstorm of an idea. I had been thinking about how to use some of the strategies, I guess you would call it, or the structure of like a game show where the stakes keep getting higher and higher, and how we could incorporate that into like an Updog game. Like the game in particular that I was thinking about, the game show, was Deal or No Deal. Like I don't know if you remember that one. It was Howie Mandel and the girls with the suitcases.
Yep.
And like they would open a suitcase, and I'm sure I'm simplifying it because I can't remember exactly how it worked, but they would open a suitcase and it would be worth a certain amount of money, and they could either keep that amount of money or continue opening suitcases,
right. And maybe have less money,
and maybe have no money,
right?
Like because there was like bust, like where they would end up with no money, but they could also continue opening up suitcases that had money, and their amount just kept going up and up. And so I was kind of like, I had been thinking about that like earlier before, but I just hadn't come up with an idea as to how to do it. And then for some reason, the beta testing going south and me having a good night's rest, just that morning, everything started clicking, and I started writing down ideas. And
we literally beta tested it that day.
I was just going to say, I think we beta tested it that day. And
Greedy was born.
Yeah, and Greedy was born. And Greedy is probably the game that I have had to change and tweak rules once beta testing was done. The least.
Really?
Like once we got it, it was like, okay, and that's that. I mean, like Boom and Fireball and some of the other ones, like we've had to change rules spaced out. We've had to like tweak and change rules a little bit until everybody kind of got the sense of what it was. And there's always these outlier situations that we don't think about. And that really hasn't happened with Greedy.
No, and I just remembered this, that I don't know, within a couple of weeks, I think it was. I could be off on the timing. It just so happened that Steve and Cindy were in Florida. And so we got Steve and Jackson to beta test it and to make sure that we had like Steveified it to where he couldn't break the game, his first two times
Immediately.
playing.
Right.
And so like that helped too. Like, okay, this game, Steve played it. He didn't break it the first go around. So this
Yeah.
game looks like it's working. It was really interesting how easily that game came together. And just like basically from a dream, kind of, like Jack just woke up one morning and like, here's a new game.
So the answer
So
to the question
we
is
didn't have a plan.
no,
No.
there was no plan. There was no like,
The universe had a plan.
The universe had a plan and delivered it to Jack in his dreams.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
poetic.
there was no great thought process about, hey, we'd really like, to work on this additional game skill or freestyle game
Right.
skill.
I think the one
But
thing that we did want, and this filled that very quickly, was another game that would fit on the 30 by 20 field.
yeah,
So that was like really we wanted our next game to fit on a 30 by 20 if possible.
Yeah.
Although
yeah,
the game we were beta testing the day before was a whole field
did
game.
not,
So
right, right.
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the universe delivered Greedy.
Um,
But even though we
so
didn't have a plan, like there's still like benefits we
Oh
discovered
yeah.
from playing it. So like what are
And
some of the freestyle skills that we developed by playing Greedy?
I mean,
I've
there's definitely benefits, and I think that there are benefits in the game of Greedy that you don't see in some of the other games.
yeah.
One of them is owning the drop,
Hmm.
really being able to say drop to your dog at any time and they drop that disc because it's advantageous for your dog to drop the disc in the sweet spot so that all your discs at the end of the game end up in the sweet spot and you're not
Yeah.
running around like a nut at the end trying to pick up discs and gather them in the sweet spot. And then, of course, occasionally, if you need your dog to bring you the disc, being able to have your dog do that as well and not just drop out there in the field all over the place. So, disc management, I think, is definitely something that is built in this game.
hmm
And I have seen players purposely work on their disc management to get their dogs as their
Better right
dogs
there.
are going across the sweet spot to drop the disc in that zone.
Mhm.
So it's really helped with that. And I also think it's very evident when I'm judging the game who can move with their dog rather than trip
Yeah.
over the top of their dog.
Yeah.
It's it's difficult if you haven't worked with moving with your dog like on one side or the other and moving quickly with your dog too, not just like at a slow pace because in greedy oftentimes you're picking up and running to the next zone very quickly and your dog gets excited because you're running.
They could come
And
trip you
if
up at
they're
the
not
end.
used to that, they're probably jumping up and down like, woo, what's going on? Instead of like, oh, okay, we're going somewhere. Where are we going? Let's go.
Right.
So I definitely think the team movement has been a big component of that game too, and has helped people to like, how do I move with my dog? How do I get my dog on the flank on one side or the other and move with my dog instead of kind of struggling to move around my dog?
Yeah, that was one of the things that stood out for me as like a use of the field. It forces you to have to move from point A to point B, where in freestyle people could just stand right in the middle of the field. So I
Right.
love that. And the part that it is a factor of a lot of our different games, but especially like Fireball. But the decision making in the middle of the process with kinesthetic movement, I think is most valuable for freestyle. Because like you could be playing spaced out, right? Or even Fireball, right? Where you have a pattern, a plan, or whatever, and you don't really have to move other than to go pick up your discs. So all you have to focus on for your movement is where your discs are to go get it. Where in Greedy, like not only do you have to think about the risk that you're taking, spending that much time in each spot, right? And whatever your plan is versus what you're actually getting, because that's what the whole purpose of the game is, right? Like you're going to go out there and you're like, okay, I'm going to hit all four first zones in the first, in the first one, and the second one I'm going to go for three, and the third one I'm going to go for three, and the last one I'm just going to go for two in the sweet spot or something like that, right? But that might not be how it works out. So
Right.
there's always that element with greedy, but I like that it's that paired with movement because I think that a lot of people have trouble like thinking and moving at the same time. So they can
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then move. But in freestyle, you have to think and move at the same time. And I think that's where people really get lost in their remembering their freestyle routine because their brain can't handle a thing and a thing. That's
Right.
something for border collies. They have trouble doing a thing and a thing. Like you catch them and they drop the disc,
Yep.
right? Or they can't go over the jump and take the disc at the same time. That's a process for them. So, for humans, sometimes, or for disc players, sometimes it's a problem for them to make critical decisions based on data that's happening right now. So there's already a fight or flight kind of response to that in your body reacting to something happening right now. But having to make a logical kinesthetic movement at the same time is really interesting for me. I think that
Wow,
that's
this just got deep. I completely
all
agree
I got,
though.
Jack. That's all
I
I got.
completely agree, and that's not something that I've necessarily thought through about the game of Greedy, but you're right. It's definitely something I've thought through about freestyle, and I know that about myself that I've gone through that journey of starting out in freestyle, not being able to do that, not being able to think
And move at the same
and
time.
play at the same time. And, luckily now I've worked through it. I've had a lot of practice doing it, and I can definitely think a lot more on the field now than I used to be able to. There's still situations where, you're just like, bah, I don't know.
It's
But
that voice in the moment.
well, and also that's why you have strategies for that. If everything's going wrong and you're losing your train of thought, you
Yep. You
you
need to
have
get
that.
that reset.
Exactly. You have that default thing that you go to that's an automatic, and then that gives you time to think. But yeah, I like that what you said about that, Dre, with Greedy. I hadn't thought about that, but that is an excellent game to work on that and get that practice for your brain and your body both working hard at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the things I like most about the game is that it feels most like freestyle to me. That's
So,
that's
developing a game where a player could do a lot of work and get a score of 0 seems pretty sinister, especially for Updog. What was the thinking behind this?
I mean, I did question myself, like, are people going to be okay with that? Like, I did all this work, I got all these catches, and now you're telling me I might get 0 points.
Scrooged.
So when I brought it to the team for beta testing, I was kind of very much expecting that I might get like some pushback on that, and that maybe we would just say, oh, you get -5 points or something like that. But I think people really liked it like right off the bat, and they were like loving the fact that they were making fun of people who got 0. The people that got 0 were laughing about it. It wasn't, it was all in kind of good fun, and then when we, in Updog fashion, we had to think of good names for the game, good names for the achievements. And I don't know whether it was Babs or I can't remember who it was that came up with Scrooged.
Probably was
I
Babs.
could see that being a Babs thing totally. I know she came up with the graphics for it, and so when we came up with that name, then people loved it even more, and so it's almost like a badge of honor to get a Scrooged.
Scrooge sticker.
Even at this year's Updiff,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
was that made this?
Ashley, from the I can't remember the name of their club. Anyway, and I can never say her name right. It's Nagy, I think. Gnagey. Anyway,
So go ahead, say what she did because she made stickers for people at Updiff, which I thought was really cool.
yeah, she made Scrooge stickers that like had Updiff on them and had the Scrooge logo on them. So that way, even if you got a 0 at Updiff, at least you got a unique sticker that no one's ever gotten before. So that was really cool. And that was really nice of her to donate that. And I think people really liked it.
Yeah, and I think people, like I said, even from day one, people have embraced that idea. And it's just this notion of going for it, and that's part of that not part of, that is the game. I mean,
Yes. Go big.
how long am I going to stand here at this zone and try and get these 5 pointers before I move on to the 4?
If it wasn't a big quote unquote consequence, it would completely change the game. I would definitely take a risk of a 5-point penalty to go for it.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Everybody
Yeah.
would. Like it wouldn't even be like a big deal. It would be one on whether somebody got the 5 points or didn't. Right? It would be like
Right.
everybody's taking all the risks, hitting all the zones. It'd be, can you get all the zones in the time? The other thing that I remember a lot about, and anytime I think about Greedy, the first thought I have is Babs walking around the field in 75 seconds. That's my biggest memory of when we were deciding like the timer, because we wanted this movement to be accessible to everybody,
Right.
regardless of physical limitation.
And she had just come off of knee surgeries.
So she
Like
had no keys. I think she had like a canes or a walker or something. She was on
No,
some
I
kind
think she was mobile on her own, but she was just maybe a
Slow.
couple months off of one of her knee surgeries. I don't remember if it was the first or second one.
She still had a bad strut.
Yeah, she wasn't moving around as good as she
made
does
her.
now.
We made her walk around the field and made
Yep.
sure we had enough time for her to walk around and throw one disc in the
Yep.
middle. So she could
That's
throw the
how-
sweet spot, walk around sweet, and that's how we determined it could happen in 75 seconds. So we're thinking
Yep.
about everybody here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Funny. All right, so that brings us back to beta testing. So when we were beta testing, we did the Babs walk around the field thing for 75 seconds.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that needed to be like adjusted or worked out or anything in beta testing?
I mean, we tried different numbers of discs. I remember that. What were you going to say, babe?
This didn't happen in our beta testing, but one thing that did change after we published it was originally the zones were called A, B, and C, and people were reporting that B and C sound too much alike. So that's why it turned into X, Y, Z. That still happened pretty quickly. Like I don't know that the game got published as ABC, but anyway, other people gave us that feedback and they were 100% correct. So that's why it's a XYZ, because those all sound different.
And it was also the score sheet at one time there were different names for the different zones. Instead of as you rotated it became XYZ. It was either letters or numbers or something.
Oh, really?
But
yeah, I remember
during
that.
beta, all of this was early beta testing. Like we didn't, again, it didn't get pushed out to the
Clubs.
Updog clubs until we had done some local beta testing, and it all kind of got worked out in the local beta testing. But I really like how that worked, and I think that helped our judges and our players, where it's always from the player's perspective as they rotate around the field, left to right, it's always XYZ. But that was definitely something we worked out in beta testing.
Something that I think changed right after we published it, I could be wrong on that, was letting players go either direction.
Yep.
The first time Landon, one of our local players, who been an UPDIF judge the last couple of years, he's a lefty. And so he was like, I'd really like it if I could go the other direction. And we're like, okay. So that was Landon's contribution to Greedy. And we have righties that go that direction too, because it works for their dog.
Because they're silly.
Yeah. No.
And I remember that was another change to the score sheet. So probably out of everything, the score sheet's the one that got tweaked the most, trying to figure out the best way to lay out that score sheet. So that if a player does go to the left versus or clockwise and counterclockwise, that when you're putting in the score, you know whether or not that's the 4-point zone or the 2-point zone.
Right. So Greedy has come to be known as Updog's most dangerous game. Can you tell us why that is?
Well, I don't have any like real statistics, but just from word of mouth and talking with people at different clubs, the most injuries seem to occur during the game of Greedy.
Human injuries?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes more sense because they have to run.
Yeah, sorry, human injuries. Yes, all
Yeah, I was
human
like,
injuries. I have not heard of any dog injuries during Greedy. But
it makes sense.
I
You
do
can blow
know
the
that
doors around this field.
what did Ken break his wrist?
His wrist.
Ken,
He broke his wrist, I think, at Purina Farms, but he probably wasn't wearing proper footwear, if I know Ken.
Probably not.
so
Ken broke his wrist. Gary broke his collarbone. It was Bike Club, and Gary was diving for the sweet spot to get those points for Bike Club. And that really shouldn't be done after a certain age. And Gary
It really shouldn't.
learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, that was during COVID, so he had to like go to the hospital, like the early COVID days.
Oh, the scary
Like go to the
hospital.
hospital like during COVID and stuff. So that was not a good experience. And then I think someone, it might have been Karen Monahan, but I might have that wrong. I think she did something to her ankle at Updiff one year in Greedy. So,
I've heard,
she didn't
yeah.
know she did it right away. She didn't know she broke or chipped a bone or something until a few days later. But so those are the three I know of.
And most of them have been in the final seconds, trying to get to the sweet
Trying to get that
spot
sweet
or trying to
spot.
get to
10
that last
points.
zone and get that last throw off, which means that those players were a tad greedy.
Yeah, those
If
are
they had
our
not been as greedy and they saved an extra couple seconds, they probably would have not incurred that injury.
So the
But
note of the day is greediness leads to injury.
Potentially.
potentially, yes. And note for clubs, make sure everyone signs your waivers.
You break it, you buy it. All right. Okay, so I have a question about the completionist rule. There's this rule. Tell us what it is, and do you think anybody will ever complete it?
So the completionist rule was this was added a little bit after we started the game, and clubs started playing. So actually, this was an addition. It's not a rule change.
I don't know that it was.
It wasn't in the. Let's just put it this way. It probably happened after Steve played the game.
Yeah, that's why I think it was very early on.
So we were just kind of wondering. We weren't sure. In the same way that when we, thought that the most runs people would ever have through a fragility course would be 5, and the most quads would be 4.
Play, right?
I never wanted to just set a game where it just ended and that's all the points you could get, because then at some point the game is broken by the top players and they can't play it anymore.
Max it out.
So, so obviously Greedy goes around in this circular fashion, and you end up going to these 4 throwing zones. But what would happen if you got through and got catches so quickly with your dog that you would wrap all the way around to zone 4, throw zone 4, and you could collect the 3 X, Y, and Z, and let's say you still had 20 seconds left. Then the completionist rule says that you can now go back to throw zone 1 and try to get as many 5-pointers from throw zone 1 as you want, but you got to go back to throw zone 4 and close out your points with the catch in the sweet spot, just like you would in the game anybody else would in the game. It just means that if you get XYZ and you have time left, instead of getting the sweet spot and just standing there, or getting the sweet spot and making sure all your discs are in the sweet spot to get the bonus, you can actually go back around and get some 5-point catches. No one has ever done this.
Don't be so greedy, because you're gonna run out of time doing that.
Well, no one's even gotten all 4 catches from the last zone. I just looked to make sure.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. I think the most has been 3. So they've gotten 2 of the XYZs, and then they closed out the sweet spot.
It's all 10 points. What was that score?
64.
So that's our high score.
That's the high score, and it's Steve Stupski. I hope I said that right. And Hustle. They are in Canada, and actually, if I'm correct, I think Hustle passed away not too long after that, unexpectedly. But anyway, they have the top score. They've had it since March of 24, so it's just sitting there waiting. That score's hung on for over a year.
I know I've gotten
62. 62 is the next highest score. And
I've gotten 1 zone plus the sweet spot multiple times.
You and Remix and you and Fierce have done the 62 points, along with Steven Jackson, Jason and Frankly, Derek Martin, and Bravo. You guys are the only ones that have gotten a 62, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it would be awesome. I would kind of want to do it even if I knew I wasn't going to get the 10 points for the sweet spot bonus. Like if I knocked out X, Y, and Z and I still had 15 seconds left, I think I would run to zone 1, try to get 2
5
catches
points and then
there.
go back.
2 catches, get 10 points, then run back and get my sweet spot bonus just to say I did the completionist rule. It still wouldn't get me any more points than just getting my 10 points in the sweet spot,
Right.
but I just think it would be fun to try. Now, of course, I would never try that during like bike club or something like that because I would get yelled at by all of the people on the team. Which is another cool thing I like about this game is that your strategy might be different depending upon the stakes. You know, like if you're playing in bike club, you want to try to get a high score, but you also don't want to get a 0 because a 0 can hurt your team just as much as, a good score can help your team. So I think in something like bike club, it's safer to just like, okay, let me make sure I at least close out. Let me get the sweet spot. It would be better for me to, instead of going for a 60, get a 52 or something and get that lower score. But again, that's a cool thing is that depending upon the stakes, your strategy might change in the game.
I was just thinking sometimes when I am bored at an event and I'm running the sound, if anyone gets Scrooged, let me turn up my volume. I like pull up YouTube and I play this.
Wah, 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 wah.
It's a game show, right? Isn't that from Price is Right or something?
I don't know, probably.
That's cute.
Puts a little more zing on that Scrooge 0 score.
We nailed that on a button for up diff. Just put it on a button.
Yeah, that might get
We got
old.
those little programmable buttons that can do stuff.
Yeah, Doug. Yeah,
plug it into that
came up
computer,
with that.
bring it with us, and plug it into the greedy deck.
With 3 different fields going wah 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 wah.
It'd be great.
Might be a bit old, but yeah, Jack, every time we play bike club and Jack's doing the players meeting, the entire club like looks at Jack sternly and reminds him that
He's playing on a team and don't screw around.
It's not just about you, Jack, and to not
I'd be that same way. That's
greedy.
the way I play
You're
greedy.
You're not
That's
going
the
to
way
get a
I play
high
greedy.
score if you don't get greedy.
But you'll get high enough for bike club.
No, I go out and throw. And if my dog catches all the stuff I throw, it's going to be an amazing round. And if they don't, it's not. So, but I don't know.
Not
I don't,
all about
I don't
you
play
when it's bike
safe.
club.
I don't play greedy safe. I like to throw it.
Well, you can't be on our bike club team.
All right, deal. Well, if I was on your bike club team, I clearly would have to have a different strategy because I don't like getting yelled at.
There you go.
No, you don't want consequences.
Well, it's not just
I really
me, it's
don't.
the rest of the club too.
Yeah.
Becky and Rachel.
Yes, but you're in the club, so just as long as
Linda.
you don't have your consequences, we can handle everybody else's.
Yeah. But anyway, what might greedy level 2 look like?
That is a great question.
It is a great question.
I've thought about it. And every time that I've kind of like come up with an idea, it's never been as good as level 1. And I don't ever want to like at a minimum, level 2 needs to be as good as level 1. If it's not as fun or not as good, why would I want to play level 2?
Right.
So,
or if it's not increasing your skill set.
But you still want the same game ability, or I don't even know if that's the right term, but playability.
It would. So let's say we even took XY. Let's say we just took XYZ and put it 1 zone further. That would change how long it takes to walk around, but does that matter for us for level 2? Because if level 1 is accessible to everybody who can move around the field walking very slowly, level 2 would be a level up from that. That should ask for some more.
I mean, you can't even do that from 2 of the throw zones because it's the width of the field.
Right. It would just be throw zone.
We're just on the other 2 on the wall.
2 and 4, which are already the ones that
people
have trouble with. Yeah.
So that could be a simple way of doing it without extending the whole field. Just extend those extra 2 zones, and next time I come to Florida, let's beta test it.
And then there's also the fact that then people playing on a 3x3 field couldn't play level 2. We already did that to them and spaced out.
Yep. And time warp.
We could do the 4-way play thing where we make them go one way and then they have to go to the other side.
Yeah, we're gonna make you run further. More injuries.
Well, no, maybe you do zone 1 is zone 1, zone 2 is across the field.
Yeah.
And then zone 3, I don't know, that would get confusing.
You know what I would love to see is a whole bunch of comments on Facebook
about these terrible ideas
about level 2 and what you guys think would make a good greedy level 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
All
sure there's
right.
people
Yeah.
who have good
Just
ideas
your
out there.
ideas, and you can hate the ideas we had. That's too. We're open to that because I don't know that any of those were winners, but we are definitely always open to feedback. But so Jack, if you could go like back in time and change anything at all about Greedy, what would you change? I
Uh,
like it just the way it is.
yeah.
I don't think
Normally
I'd
I
change
have an answer for these things because normally there are things that I would have done differently.
I
But
love it. It
I
is.
mean, Greedy is not my favorite game, but there's nothing I would change about it. It's just not my favorite game because I'm lazy and I don't want to run around the field. Like you'll notice, and I'm sure most people probably haven't noticed, but the summer, ever since I became in charge of planning Bike Club, because it used to be Ken and Ashley, they'd make the schedule. Ever since I became in charge of it, you don't find Greedy in the summer session of Bike Club because
This is
it's
true.
too hot to run around the field. So it's
Yeah.
like that's my
That's your viewpoint on Greedy.
exactly. My viewpoint on Greedy is it doesn't get played in the summer in a bike club because it's too freaking hot to run around like that, especially in Florida and Georgia and stuff.
another idea for level 2 would just be to like use less discs.
That'd be
That's
pain.
a really good one.
But yeah, that is a
Yep.
good.
I mean, keep it the exact, keep it the
Four,
same, but
4 discs, one for each zone on each wall. That'd be
Yeah,
really hard.
I mean, even if you just lowered it to 6, it'd be tough too.
yeah,
Yeah.
or five. You
I
get
would
Yeah,
one
really change
extra.
it would really force you to get that disc management working really well.
and make it easier to get the sweet spot.
Anyway, we're gonna wait and listen in
See what the comments
as our
are.
listeners give us comments because I know they're gonna have some good ideas.
But we have fun facts today, don't we?
We do. We have
What's the topic
some
of our fun
game
fact?
show fun facts. Since the origin of Greedy kind of started with the idea from a game show, we have some game show fun facts that we found.
What do you think, Kat? You want to start us off?
Sure. Just have to wait for Jack to bring up the screen of the fun facts.
Oh, sorry, I'm on the screen. I was like, oh yeah,
Oh,
it's right
okay.
here.
All right. Fun fact number one. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire prevents contestants from cheating while using the Phone a Friend lifeline by having the chosen friends sit with fully briefed security officers who prevent them from consulting the internet and all other foreign reference material. All right.
That would make sense. That
Yeah,
like, yeah,
for a
if you
million
phone a
bucks.
friend, what's going to stop them from just looking it up?
Googling it.
I guess the FBI.
Yeah. So yeah, it's FBI. Fully
Yeah.
briefed
No,
security officers.
fully
It
briefed.
could be the bank
FBS.
guy. It could be,
FBS, fully briefed
yeah.
security.
It could be the guy outside the grocery store that's packing with a security badge. Like it's a brief security officer. You could pay the guy off. You'd be like, hey, this could be $1 million. I'll give you 100,000 if you let me Google. So I don't know. That still feels like there's a gap there.
All right. Trey, what's our next one?
If a Jeopardy contestant tries to buzz in to answer a question before the host has finished reading it, their buzzer's signal is blocked for a quarter of a second. This functions as a digital policeman that keeps the game flowing. When Jeopardy first aired, contestants were allowed to buzz in at any time, which led to quick guesses, negative scores, and general confusion. So, my question about this one, it says they block it for a quarter of a second. You're saying a quarter of a second delay makes the difference between the game running smoothly or not?
Well, no, but it's saying that
Like if you buzz,
if you
then
buzz
you can't buzz
early, then you
again.
can't buzz for another quarter of a second. But what used to happen
Um,
was like in the middle of them giving the answer, right? They would give the answer. Let's say they, I don't know, gave part of the answer and I clicked in, then Alex would have stopped talking and I would have been like, oh, you didn't finish, so now I don't know. And that's why they didn't want people buzzing in early, I guess. But
that
that
makes
makes sense. I could see them getting trigger happy and then,
yeah. Yeah, because
making
it's the
some
first one that
stupid
buzzes in.
guess.
First one that buzzes in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Another thing that we found out about Jeopardy, which I didn't know, but when I read it, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. The contestants always look like they're the same height. They're like in a nice line all the way around. That is because they have adjustable platforms underneath them that adjust them so that they're all the same height. So
That
makes
makes-
sense.
Yeah, for cameras and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pat Sajak, You guys remember? I think the young people who are maybe watching the podcast don't know who this is, but Pat Sajak and Vanna White.
Everybody knows what Wheel of Fortune is, I think.
Wheel of Fortune. The host when we were growing up was Pat Sajak and Vanna White, and I think Vanna White was the Turner for like ever and ever and ever and ever.
Isn't she still the Turner?
I don't know, but she's. I mean,
I think she is.
That would be a fun fact.
I'll Google it while you finish reading.
Yeah. So Pat Sajak and Vanna White only shoot Wheel of Fortune 35 days a year. And days on set are stretched out across 9 months. However, when they do tape, they can shoot 6 shows in 6 hours. So basically, they shoot for 35 days and then the rest of the year off.
And they're getting paid a ton, and they're only working 35 days a year.
That's the kind of job we need, Jack.
I know.
We need to come up with a game show that's
soon we'll be able to record podcasts only 35 days a year and get paid full time.
Yeah, like that kind of money, you know? It's our future.
This one I thought was interesting also about Pat Sajak and Vanna White and the Wheel of Fortune. Pat admitted that they would often be drunk while taping. Pat Sajak said on the ESPN2 show Highly Questionable that they enjoyed 2 or 3 to even 6 drinks and would have trouble recognizing the alphabet by the time they returned to set. They used to average 4 margaritas every afternoon at a Mexican restaurant across the street from the studio. Even better, Dre. 35 days a year.
35 days of 4 margaritas.
4 margaritas
liver
every day.
Detox for 9 months to make up for the impact of them killing their bodies with 4 margaritas a day.
By the way, Vanna White is still on Wheel of Fortune. She's extended her contract through 2026, so she'll be there through at least 2026.
Did it say how much she gets paid?
I didn't look those things up. I
Gotta
don't.
be at least in her 70s.
No, you think?
Come on.
Let me see. How old is Vanna White?
You know what decade we're in, and she was doing
68.
that.
She's 68.
68. Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
Long career. I wonder if she's still hanging down those 4 margaritas a day.
She gets $10 million a year.
Crazy for
35 days of work.
Yep.
That's amazing. All right.
Finish us off, Kat.
This one's going to be sad.
It's our last one, but I picked this one out for Kat.
Following George Michael's death, Richard Osman, an executive producer of the British version of Deal or No Deal.
That was the briefcase one that Howie Mandel did here in the United States that sparked Greedy.
Yep. Richard Osman revealed that the singer once saw an episode of the show where a contestant said she was trying to earn 15,000 pounds, which is like 20,000 roughly in US dollars, to pay for IVF treatment. The next day, George Michael quietly called her and gave her the money she needed. This act of kindness remained a secret until his death. There's actually a lot of things that he did like that nobody knew, until he died, and then people started talking about it because he didn't want his generosity to be like, he wasn't trying to get recognition for it. But anyway.
So he was more than a great voice and tight jeans.
That's right.
All right. Way to go, George Michael.
Yeah, faith.
All right, we're not going to sing George Michael, but
all right. Well, I think that is a great way to end the episode.
Can
you guys do that? Can you guys do that faith thing again one more time? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Faith.
It's gotta be a little bit louder if they want the audience to hear you. One last time. 1, 2, 3.
Are we saying gotta?
Faith. Oh, come on.
Come on, get it together. On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Gotta have
Faith.
So
Woo!
terrible.
All right.
That was terrible.
I think everyone tuned out after the second.
I can't repeat the
Well,
there.
Thanks, Jack, for being our greedy expert today. And thanks, Kat, for being sort of hosting with me, all 3 of us together. That was a fun episode about the origins of Greedy.
We hope that you guys enjoyed it, and we hope that you're out there playing Updog games maybe this weekend. There's a bunch of cool events popping up on the discussion page. Make sure you check out that discussion page. I just saw a new one about Jurassic Bark, I think I saw, from who is that? Emily Libby that's doing that one, her group. So check that out. That looks really cool. A lot of cool sponsors that they've got on board as well. Check out your local area. Check the Updog Challenge discussion, or not the discussion page, and also the web page for events around you. And in the meantime,
be kind to each other.
and be kind to your animals, right, Kat?
Right.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.